Well, we are kicking off the new year in a great way today. We've got one of our faves here at Namaste who's come back to bless us with his awesome message and his light, and just so grateful to have Dale back with us. And he's always got a great message to share. And he sort of took last year off to do some other things, and we're just glad he's back. And maybe we'll see more of him this year. I hope so. And anyway, I'm looking forward to your message, as I always do. And let's give Dale Allen Hoffman a...
I didn't really set, it sounds kind of loud.
A little bit.
Channel 6, because I can get louder. Because I'm from New Jersey. La la la. Until it's whatever. Whatever sounds good to someone else. Yeah, I didn't really, in a way, I guess I took last year off. I'll talk a bit about that. I stepped back a few steps after being pretty much on the road constantly for almost 10 years, a lot away from family, in the mire of things, and you're sort of telling a place from 6 to 18 months in advance what you're going to talk about. And a lot of times they want you to talk about what you talked about at that other place that talked about you, and in the other place, and you find yourself kind of going through this rhythm, and you're sort of this repetitive pattern. And there's not a lot of, I do my best to kind of open up within that, and I tend to be a little unfiltered sometimes. On a Sunday morning, some places don't like the unfiltered thing as much. But, yeah. Watch what you say.
Careful what you say.
So, we're actually going to start with a tone. First, just from my little teeny tiny friend. I got this from the One Spirit Book Club like 25 years ago when I got this compilation of Thich Nhat Hanh books that I had already read, but then a bunch of these books of his were in this one hardcover edition. And this was free, so I put it to the side, never really took it out of the box. And then after about 6 months, I took it out of the box one day and I just struck it.
Wow. Wow. That's right.
It's amazing how things can do that to you, right under your nose. So, since a lot of people know me as the Aramaic toning guy, we're going to start with one tone just to open things up. Speaking of the feminine, with a small introduction. I don't use the word Lord unless I'm referencing the fact that I don't use the word Lord, if that makes sense. Lord, anybody know where the word Lord comes from?
Property owner.
Property owner. It has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity or Jesus whatsoever. No, the word did not exist 2,000 years ago. Property owner, it comes from Old into Middle English, 8th into the 9th century of the Common Era. And the original word sounded like this, Hofwerd. It meant loaf ward. It was the guy that owned the land, that was the ruler that would set out the parameters for society that people must live within. He was the bread giver, the giver of life, the power person at the top of the pyramid. And of course all the serfs and peons, aptly named, were at the bottom. I don't use that word. What I'm going to do first, before we tone it together, is I want to tone the word Lord for you, what the actual original tone was in Aramaic, in Yeshua's language. Okay? I want to tone that sound so you hear what it sounds like. And I say this with as much empathy and compassion as I can. Probably 99.9% of all biblical language, Christian, theological experts on planet Earth have no clue about this that I'm about to reveal to you. Okay? So I'm going to make the tone once, and then we'll do it together 3 times. This is what Lord actually was. When Yeshua would use the word, this is the word that fell from his lips. Maria. Very feminine. Let's make that sound 3 times. You don't have to last forever until you turn blue in the face and fall over. I won't judge you if you do. It happens from time to time. So just 3, Maria. Just get a good breath of air and make that sound, okay? Never mind all the stage fright or judgment about the quality of your voice, okay? Good breath. One more wide open, almost like it's an invocation, okay? Intriguingly, if you put the letter mem, the Aramaic letter mem, which is an M basically, at the end, you have Mariam or Miriam. This would be a good time to silence cell phones and things. Mariam, which is the name Mary. So, welcome to 2018. 2017 was beautiful, it was perfect, everything flowed. Politics looked beautiful, economy looked beautiful, religion, theology, everybody got along and loved each other. 2017 in a nutshell, yes? You were given a great gift in 2017, and that gift, it actually applies with what, the 8th Beatitude from Yeshua, where he essentially says in Aramaic that blessed are you who are uprooted, dislocated, and reviled for your goodness and decency. It's kind of what 2017 felt like. Yes. People were saying, everything's falling apart, and I'm like, nothing's falling apart. It's actually that things are being revealed. Right. Okay? I'll come back to this pretty often, actually, so I'm going to talk about the feminine, of course. The only time we see that any kind of a division between light and dark is when there's a veil present. That's your beliefs, that's your theology, your religion. When people come up to me and say, what is your faith? And I'm like, you'll have to let me know what faith means to you, because I know what it meant 2,000 years ago versus what people say it is today, which is what religion do you practice, which has nothing to do with faith. If you have faith in something happening, that's also not faith, that's belief. It's okay, it's good, belief is good. Faith, one of the examples I give is like Glenn Miller or Benny Goodman or Miles Davis or John Coltrane on a night when their soul was open. Carlos Santana hitting a note, and Mikhail Baryshnikov, on a night when everything just lined up. That's what faith is. Ha'imanuta. To consciously live from the rooted center of your being, to express your deepest eternal nature. If you have faith in something happening, it is not faith. It is not faith. That's belief. It has nothing to do with faith. It's actually a lack of faith. So you say, I have faith this is going to happen. You have no faith. You're actually just relying on a belief. The reason I'm saying that is because we've been trying so hard to be spiritual. 2017 gave us this amazing gift of uprooting us, dislocating us, and kind of washing us across the desert sands. It's probably what it felt like at times. I didn't know Aurora had passed, like half of a year ago. I didn't know that. I would need all my fingers and toes to count the people that I love dearly that we lost in the last 12 months. Almost myself just a few nights ago on the side of our mountain. Is about that much play left. She gets sick of hearing it, but there was just a small little scrub brush, about this much of a root system, that kept my Jeep from rolling over. It's funny, I called her and I'm like, can you call 911? And it's still wobbling back and forth. And I'm looking down on this like several 100-foot drop, and a neighbor shows up and he's like, why don't you get out? And I'm like, and he like coached me out of the car, First put the window down and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but we're trying so hard to be spiritual. Do you know what spiritual means, actually? That word spiritus in Latin. It means, this is an example of it, or it means frequency or vibration. That's the word spirit. Breath, heartbeat, sound, magnetism, electromagnetism. There's so many, nuclear forces, solar energy, all these different examples are, the tides, frequency and vibration. What does it mean to be spiritual? It means to be open to the movement of air across your skin. I usually have this beautiful owl's wing that I do this with, but I'll fling my book at you instead. It's not quite as deep. But just being awake in the moment and feeling the movement of air across your skin. We have this strange idea that's been given to us by religion and motivational figures and New Age and rah-rah artists, as I call them, that there's this thing that we need to live up to. But, and I say this every time I'm here, and I'll probably say it every time I come back, from St. Francis of Assisi. He said, what you are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for is what is looking. You're seeking your own divine nature, your own eternal essence. And what's happening now is we've been focusing on that for the last few decades in a big way across the earth. And what happens, kind of like, you've got a pot full of garbage, and you start heating the pot, things start stinking for a little while because that stuff's got to burn off. And unfortunately, we start judging the things that stink as bad, so we try not to feel them or think about them, and we call them negative. And we call the things we like positive. So then we focus on the positive because we have to be spiritual. Rah, rah, rah. See my shiny teeth? Happy, happy, happy. And then what happens is we find ourselves in this stress pattern, not being able to measure up to what we're supposed to be in our true eternal nature. And I know a lot of people that have, it's been interesting to me to see it on social media because I fasted from it in a major way in 2017, so I was able to kind of step back and look at it. And I'll talk more about that in a few moments. But I find it really intriguing to see how hard we all work and try to be uplifting, positive, spiritual figures. It's an interesting thing to watch because I get more from is she snoring? No, her head came up. Hi, baby doll. I get more from just watching her play than I do from books. I don't really read many books anymore. I actually am in the process of one right now, but we've been trying so hard to match up, and I see this whole social media thing actually that we've been doing. Everybody's heard of algorithms at this point? Been hearing a lot about them for the last month. I want to share, anybody ever heard the name Jaron Lanier? Jaron Lanier, this is a book called Dawn of the New Everything, Encounters with Reality and Virtual Reality. Anybody ever heard of a show called The Good Doctor? It's on TV. With Freddie Highmore. In my opinion, he'll win an Emmy, Golden Globe. He already got a Golden Globe nomination. He might have won already. A couple of episodes ago, they were mimicking a surgery they were going to do in this virtual world. And there was this thing projecting, and they had goggles on, and they were going in to do this major heart surgery, and it was down to the millimeter. If it was a millimeter too much or too small of an incision or a threading back together, the patient would die. So they would go through it over and over on this virtual reality system that Jaron Lanier invented. Pretty much everything you know of involved with, he actually is known for pretty much popularizing the term virtual reality. He's not sure if he actually came up with that originally or not. Interesting book though, because he also talks about algorithms. Actually, it's algorithmic behavioral modification. What is that? Well, it's called advertising. He talks about how inadvertently, basically the far left, the alt-left, created this system where they wanted everything to be free on the internet so you don't have to pay for it. And then what happened as a result was, the only way that it could sustain itself was to put ads into that system. Now, when you start putting ads into the system so that these companies can actually create things like Facebook, etc., all of a sudden they start thinking thoughts like, how can we get more people to click on ads? How can we get a higher success rate? So what they start doing is they start monitoring everything that you're doing at all times. Anybody have an Alexa device from Amazon? If it's on in your house and you're sitting at the table talking about Bob Dylan, aspirin, sugar cookies, anything, it's recording what you're saying and it goes back to Amazon. It says it in the booklet when you buy it. Samsung and several other TV makers have televisions that listen to you 24/7, even if the TV's not switched on. Now what I'm saying here, I'm not talking about gloom and doom per se, but every single thing that you do, anybody ever gone on Amazon and looked at something and you go on Facebook and there's an ad for it? Yeah. What a miracle! Yeah. How did they know what I was looking at?
Yeah.
Gmail would be the worst in the Google basically gave the federal government free reign into their internet systems about 6 years ago. So what that means is everything you do when you Google something, if you have Gmail, it's always being watched and monitored. So imagine a system where they're watching what you're doing and there's a feedback loop that generates back to the advertisers to change the way they market to you in response to how you respond to ads, and then it keeps feeding back, and you've got a feedback loop where they start altering what they want you to see without you realizing it. It happens very subtly over the course of a few years, and then all of a sudden you go on Facebook and you're not seeing like your brother's posts and your father's posts or your children. You're seeing this other stuff that seems non-related. When they do it in a major way like they did 3 weeks ago, they had to roll some of that algorithm back. Because people were going, wait a second, I'm posting something here and I want to make sure everybody's seeing it. Okay, so what starts happening, you start having this artificial intelligence that's running your life, and then on the top of that, at least your online life, on top of that, you're trying to be more spiritual. You're trying to be positive. So of course what you're doing is you're feeding into those algorithms which loop back and literally alter what it is that you're seeing on a daily basis. Interesting little thing. I'm going to read some stuff in relation to that. But there's one thing, well, let me actually hit this first. Which one's positive? The white. Which one's negative?
Black.
The black. Which one's masculine?
Black.
No, the white.
The white. Which one's feminine?
The black.
The black.
Not to me.
Do you understand how you've been duped in the last few hundred years? Now let me tell you something. First of all, positive is not good, negative is not bad. In the words of William Shakespeare, he said there is nothing good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. Technically, when the Middle English word translated, well, that says thinking, what it actually meant at that time was discernment, which could also mean judgment. There's nothing good nor bad, but judgment makes it so. A lot of times I'll pull a battery out, and I'll show the positive and the negative, and I'll say, is there anybody here who can show me where that battery changes from positive into negative? Where in the middle? You can bring me the greatest engineer on earth. They can't, because there is no such thing. It doesn't change from positive to negative. What does that mean? It's not two different things. It's a singularity or a continuum. There's no masculine and feminine in a relationship. No. There's no good and bad. There's no light and dark. There's no good and evil. There's no past and future. Interesting little thing how these veils are we're trying to live up to veils of being the whole, and what's happening is at the time of that, these veils are being made thicker by these media systems that are looping back everything that you're doing and actually altering your behavior. And when you're stuck in that loop and you have that addiction of going back, it's really hard to let that go. So we've been told positive's good, negative's bad. There's nothing true in that whatsoever. They're exactly 100% equal to each other. It's a 50-50 relationship. We should be using the powers, the terms empowering and disempowering would be a better way to put that. Or integrative and disintegrative. That which builds the system up, that which basically tears it down. Kind of like, you've got a beautiful song, Tim's back there, you know, all this amazing music, and it's all in this one beautiful, wide open major key, and then some kid walks up to the piano and just starts going, blah, blah, in the middle of the song. That would be a disintegrative energy. Is that